In the year 165 AD, Marcus Aurelius woke up to find that a plague had entered Rome. Not a small illness. A pandemic that would eventually kill 5 million people. At the same time, his empire was being invaded on two fronts simultaneously. His closest friend and co-emperor had just died. His wife was ill. And his son, the heir to everything he had spent his life building, was showing signs that he would destroy it all. Everything was falling apart. At the same time. And here is what makes this story different from every motivational speech you have ever heard. Marcus Aurelius did not rise above it. He did not pretend it was not happening. He did not find a silver lining. He sat with the weight of all of it and he kept going anyway. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what he did. Step by step. Thought by thought. Decision by decision. Because the way he handled the worst period of his life is the most complete guide to resilience ever written. And some of it is going to challenge everything you think you know about how to survive when everything falls apart. Welcome to Memento Sapiens, ancient wisdom for the modern mind. Today we go deeper than we have ever gone before. This is not a video about how to feel better. This is not a video about positive thinking or finding your purpose. This is a precise, historically grounded, psychologically complete guide to what Marcus Aurelius actually did in practice, in detail, in the worst years of his life, to not only survive but to continue leading, thinking, and growing. 7 complete lessons. 20 years of documented evidence. One of the most tested systems of resilience in human history. This is what it looks like to fall apart and keep going anyway. Lesson 1. Stop trying to feel better. Start trying to see clearly. This is the first and most important thing Marcus Aurelius did when everything fell apart, and it is the opposite of what most people do. When life collapses, the instinct is to manage the feeling. To distract, to suppress, to find something that numbs the pain long enough to keep moving. Marcus Aurelius refused to do this. He wrote in his meditations during the plague years, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice what he does not say. He does not say, "You have power over your feelings." He says, "You have power over your mind." There is a critical difference. Feelings are automatic. They arrive without permission. The grief, the fear, the exhaustion, these are not weaknesses. They are information. What Marcus Aurelius trained was not the absence of feeling. It was the clarity of perception beneath the feeling. He developed a practice he called the view from above, the ability to zoom out from his immediate pain and see the situation as it actually was, not as his emotions were making it appear. When the plague arrived, his emotions said, "Everything is ending." His mind, trained by years of Stoic practice, said, "This is a crisis." Crises have phases. What is the next right action? When his co-emperor died, his emotions said, "I am completely alone." His mind said, "Grief is appropriate. It is also temporary. What does the empire need from me today?" This is not coldness. This is not suppression. This is the disciplined use of the most powerful tool available to a human being, the ability to distinguish between what is happening and what it means. Most people collapse not because of what happens to them, but because of the story they immediately tell about what it means. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to pause before writing that story. And in that pause, everything was possible. The practice for you: the next time something goes wrong, before you react, before you catastrophize, before you tell the story, ask yourself one question. What is actually happening right now, separate from what I fear it means? That question is the first stone of Stoic resilience. Lesson 2. The obstacle is not in your way. The obstacle is the way. This is perhaps the most quoted line from Marcus Aurelius. But almost nobody understands what he actually meant by it because they have never read the context in which he wrote it. He was not writing this as motivational philosophy. He was writing it during a military campaign, surrounded by death, managing a collapsing supply line, while simultaneously dealing with political betrayal back in Rome. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not saying that obstacles are secretly blessings in disguise. He was not saying that pain leads to growth in some cosmic, comfortable way. He was making a precise psychological observation. When you stop resisting an obstacle and start directing your energy toward navigating it, the obstacle itself begins to reveal the path forward. Let me give you a concrete example from his life. When the plague arrived, Marcus Aurelius could not stop it. He tried sending doctors, reorganizing supply lines, managing the panic. None of it was enough. So he stopped trying to stop the plague. And he started asking a different question: given that the plague is here and cannot be stopped, what can I build, organize, or improve that the plague cannot touch? He restructured the Roman military. He reformed the legal system. He developed new administrative processes that would outlast the plague by centuries. He turned the obstacle of the plague, which he could not remove, into the catalyst for improvements he might never have made without it. This is what "the obstacle is the way" actually means. Not that the obstacle is secretly good, but that the obstacle, once accepted as permanent, reveals an entirely new set of possible actions. The practice for you: identify the biggest obstacle in your life right now, the one you have been trying to remove for months or years. Ask yourself, if this obstacle never goes away, what becomes possible that was not possible before? That question will change your relationship with difficulty permanently. Lesson 3. Amor Fati, the most advanced Stoic concept and the most misunderstood. Amor Fati. In Latin, love of fate. Not acceptance of fate. Not tolerance of fate. Love of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so only with all your heart." When I first read this during the worst period of my own life, I found it almost offensive. Love what is destroying you? Love the loss? Love the betrayal? Love the collapse? And then I understood what he actually meant. Amor Fati is not love of pain. It is love of reality. Most human suffering does not come from what happens to us. It comes from the gap between what is happening and what we believe should be happening instead. We suffer not because of the difficulty, but because of our resistance to it. Because we keep imagining the life we were supposed to have, the health we were supposed to keep, the relationship that was supposed to survive. Amor Fati closes that gap permanently. It is the practice of looking at everything that happens, including the worst things, and saying not "I am glad this happened," but "this is what is real." and I choose to work with reality rather than against it. Marcus Aurelius practiced Amor Fati during the Antonine Plague by doing something almost no leader in history has done. He publicly acknowledged that the situation was devastating. He did not pretend otherwise. He did not manufacture optimism for political purposes. He said, in effect, "This is terrible. It is also real. And we will meet it as it is." That honesty, that radical acceptance of what was actually happening, is what allowed him to respond effectively rather than reactively. Because you cannot solve a problem you are still refusing to accept. The practice for you: think of the one thing in your life you most wish were different. The one thing you keep fighting against in your mind. Now ask yourself, what would become available to me if I fully accepted that this is real? Not forever. Not with happiness. Just real. That acceptance is the beginning of actual movement. Lesson 4. The discipline of the present moment, the only place resilience actually lives. Marcus Aurelius wrote more about the present moment than almost any other topic in the Meditations. Confine yourself to the present. He returned to this idea again and again, in different words, from different angles, across years of writing. Why? Because he understood something that modern neuroscience has only recently confirmed. The human brain cannot actually process the past and the future simultaneously with effective action in the present. When we are living in regret about the past or fear about the future, the part of our brain responsible for clear decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, is literally less active. We become cognitively less capable when we time travel mentally. Marcus Aurelius had no neuroscience. But he observed this in himself with extraordinary precision. He wrote during the darkest years of the plague, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He was not being morbid. He was using the awareness of mortality as a precision tool to cut through the noise of past regret and future fear and land, cleanly, in the only moment that ever actually exists. The present. Now here is the part that most people miss about present moment awareness. It is not passive. It is not about meditation or stillness or acceptance. Present moment awareness, in the Stoic sense, is intensely active. It means, what is the one next right action available to me right now? Not the 10 actions I need to take to fix everything. Not the plan for the next 5 years. Not the processing of all the ways things went wrong. The one next right action. Right now. During the plague, Marcus Aurelius did not try to solve everything simultaneously. He identified, every morning, the single most important action he could take that day. And he took it. Fully. Without dividing his attention between everything else that was also falling apart. This is the discipline of the present. And it is the single most effective tool for survival when everything is collapsing simultaneously. The practice for you: when you feel overwhelmed by everything that is wrong, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, what is the one next right action I can take in the next 10 minutes? Just one. Take it. Then ask again. That is how Marcus Aurelius governed an empire during a pandemic. One next right action at a time. Lesson 5. You were not designed to do this alone, and neither was Marcus Aurelius. Here is the part of Stoic philosophy that is almost never talked about. People assume Stoicism is about individual strength, about self-reliance, about needing nothing and no one. Marcus Aurelius believed the opposite. He wrote, "We were born for cooperation, as were the feet, the hands, the eyelids, and the upper and lower jaws." And in the meditations, scattered across years of private writing, there are moments of profound vulnerability where the most powerful man in the world acknowledges that he could not have survived without specific people. His teacher Epictetus, whose writings he had memorized. His Stoic mentor Rusticus, who first gave him the meditations of Epictetus. His mother, whose example of simplicity he returned to constantly. Marcus Aurelius built his resilience not in isolation, but in relationship with people who were further along the path he was trying to walk. This is a precise Stoic insight: you cannot become what you have never seen. If you have never witnessed someone navigate loss with grace, you will not know it is possible when loss arrives for you. If you have never seen someone maintain integrity under pressure, you will not know how to do it when the pressure comes. The people you surround yourself with are not just company. They are evidence. Evidence of what is possible. Evidence that the path you are trying to walk is walkable. Marcus Aurelius, during the worst years of his life, did not isolate. He sought out people who thought more clearly than he did in areas where he was struggling. He wrote letters. He read obsessively. He remained in active relationship with ideas and people that were bigger than his current pain. The practice for you: identify one person in your life who handles adversity in a way you admire. Do not just observe them from a distance. Get closer. Ask them how they think. Ask them what they return to when things fall apart. You do not need a Stoic mentor to find this. You just need to be honest about who in your life is already living at the level you want to reach, and move toward them. Lesson 6. Why Marcus Aurelius wrote, and why you should too. The meditations were not written for publication. They were never intended to be read by anyone other than Marcus Aurelius himself. They were a private tool. Every entry was a conversation with himself, a way of catching his own thinking in real time, examining it, and correcting it before it became action. He wrote during the plague. He wrote during military campaigns. He wrote after difficult conversations with people who had disappointed him. He wrote in the middle of the night when sleep would not come. He wrote because he understood something profound about the human mind. Unexamined thoughts become beliefs. Unexamined beliefs become decisions. Unexamined decisions become a life. The journal was his examination process. When he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he was not writing a motivational quote. He was catching himself in a moment of powerlessness, examining the belief that was driving it, and replacing it with something more accurate. When he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action," he was not making a philosophical observation. He was talking himself through a moment of paralysis, finding the path forward by writing his way toward it. This is what journaling actually is: not a record of your feelings, but a laboratory for your thinking. And here is the most important thing about Marcus Aurelius's writing practice during his worst years. He wrote about what was wrong. In detail. Without pretending it was not wrong. And then, in the same entry, he wrote about what was still within his control. Every time. Without exception. This two-step process, acknowledging the difficulty fully, then redirecting to agency, is now recognized by cognitive behavioral therapists as one of the most effective tools for building resilience. Marcus Aurelius was practicing it 2,000 years ago. The practice for you, tonight, before you sleep, write 2 things. First, what is actually hard right now? Do not minimize it. Write it as it is. Second, what is still within your control, no matter how small? Do this every night for 1 week. Watch what happens to your relationship with difficulty. Lesson 7. The anchor that held Marcus Aurelius together when everything else was falling apart. We have covered 6 lessons, and each one is powerful on its own. But there is one final element, the deepest layer of Marcus Aurelius's resilience, that held all the others together. He knew why he was doing it. Not abstractly. Not philosophically. Precisely. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And in his darkest moments, when the plague was killing thousands daily, when his empire was threatened on every border, when he could see that his son was going to undo everything he had built, Marcus Aurelius returned to one anchoring question. Am I being the person I said I would be? Not, am I winning? Not, is everything going to be okay? Not, will history remember me well? Am I being the person I said I would be? That question, asked daily, honestly, consistently, is what the Stoics called virtue. And virtue, they believed, was the only thing that could not be taken from you by any external event. The plague could take his health. It could not take his integrity. The invasion could threaten his empire. It could not threaten his character. His son could undo his legacy. He could not undo Marcus Aurelius's choice to act with wisdom in each present moment. This is the deepest level of Stoic resilience. Not strength. Not positivity. Not the ability to endure. Identity. Knowing so clearly who you are and what you stand for that when everything external collapses, there is still something standing. Something that cannot fall. Because it does not depend on circumstances. The practice for you, write down 3 values that define who you are at your best. Not who you want to become. Who you already are when you are being most fully yourself. Then ask yourself every morning, for the rest of this week, am I being this person today? That question, answered honestly and daily, is the foundation of everything Marcus Aurelius built. It is the thing that held when everything else was falling. And it is available to you. Right now. Regardless of what is falling in your life today. 7 lessons from a man whose life fell apart and who kept going anyway. Stop trying to feel better. Start seeing clearly. The obstacle is the way, not because it is secretly good, but because it reveals what was hidden before. Amor Fati, love of reality, not love of pain. Accept what is real so you can work with it. The discipline of the present, one next right action at a time. You were not designed to do this alone. Move toward people who are living at the level you want to reach. Write not to record your feelings, but to examine your thinking. Anchor yourself in identity. Know who you are so clearly that nothing external can take it from you. Marcus Aurelius faced a pandemic, invasion, betrayal, and the knowledge that his son would undo everything he built. He never stopped writing. Never stopped thinking. never stopped asking himself the one question that mattered. Am I being the person I said I would be? He died in 180 AD, still on campaign, still governing, still writing. Still being the person he said he would be. That is available to you. Not when things get better. Not when the difficulty passes. Now. If this gave you something real, share it with someone who is in the middle of a difficult time right now. It might be the most useful thing they hear this week. Subscribe to Memento Sapiens. Every week, we go deeper. Remember to be wise. Memento Sapiens.